Hey, shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome back. I want to do an introduction to the book of James in the New Testament. The James the Just, the brother of Yeshua and successor of the Messianic Church. Let's see what we could dig up right here. While most date the book of James in the early 60s CE, it is possible that it may have been written before 50 CE. If this were the case, James would be one of the earliest New Testament books compiled. The author of James is likely James, the brother of Yeshua, although Scriptures records 4 men with this name. 2 did not have the clout necessary to produce these epistles, and the other, James the Apostle, was too early, having died around 44 CE. Now, the James the Apostle was one half of the Sons of Thunder. His brother John, he lived and wrote the book of Revelations. But there's so many James in there, it does get kind of confusing in Scripture. But this was they say it was the brother, the head of the assembly, in Jerusalem. And we read about that in the book of Acts, where there was Paul and Peter and the other apostles were summoned back to the assembly to talk about the circumcision of the Gentiles, if they should do it or not. And anyways, background, the book of James was written to the 12 tribes, probably meaning to Hebrews, really he was doing it to the 12 tribes scattered throughout the world, the 12 tribes of Israel, not just Judah. The book is in contrast to other writings of the New Testament, particularly to those of the Apostle Paul. While Paul was an apostle to the Gentiles and spent a great deal of time showing the distinction between justification and works, James focuses on the way justification and works harmonize in salvation's plan. James states that faith without works is dead. Works justify faith. Faith justifies the man. That's chapter 2, verse 22. He teaches that justification, along with sanctification, which means setting one apart through obedience to the word, are necessary for salvation. Throughout James emphasizes good works, which is a major theme of his epistle, and which translates to true faith. Because James held strongly to obedience, Martin Luther, who advocated a doctrine of faith alone, called James an epistle of straw. So this man, Martin Luther, the founder of the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, is second guessing the inspired word, through James, Yeshua's brother. James centers on moral living, pure worship, and impartiality among believers. For example, he defines pure religion as helping those in need and keeping oneself unspotted from the world. Chapter 1, verse 27. He shows that compassion and proper worship operate together. It is not enough to simply go through the motions. A believer must also learn and apply the principles taught by Yeshua and his apostles. While the majority of today's teachings focus on faith, few will emphasize obedience. For many clerics, the mere mention of works arouses negative thoughts of what they call legalism and works righteousness. While it is true that a person is justified by grace apart from works, it is not true that believers are free to disobey the laws and commandments established by Yahweh himself. While some Old Testament laws have been superseded, much of Yahweh's laws is still in effect, including the 10 Commandments. In Matthew 5, Yeshua made the law even more potent and binding. The law will be active and enforced through the end of the age. And you could read that in Revelations chapter 14, verse 12, and chapter 22, verse 14. And on the coming of the kingdom, those who obey it will be given access to the kingdom and the tree of life. Revelations 22:14. So basically, a lot of these churches, believe we're just saved by grace alone, not works, not faith. little bit of faith here and there, but it's not the way it is, not the way the book says. And who are you going to believe? You're going to believe man? You're going to believe the inspired word? You know, it's simple, it's logical, self-evident that's what, we go by the word. We don't go by what man says. Look at the carnage and craziness man has brought into this world through the devil. It's all upside down. It's confusing. People look at the wrongs and think they're right and think the rights are wrong just for their own selfish carnal ambitions. That's not the way it is. And as for James, the early church fathers, Eusebius, but way back before Eusebius, it's stated, and it's, I'd have no reason to disbelieve it, but Yeshua, he turned the reins of the assembly over to his brother, James the Just. He was the head of the church, not Peter, like what Rome says. Rome don't know that much, they just know their own rituals and things like that. And the Protestant daughters, of course, follow suit, even though there's a couple things, they rebelled against, but, they still hold up to a lot of those Catholic beliefs. And that's not, that's an apostate church is what you would call it, and churches. But then after that, history also stated that, when James the Just was martyred and thrown off the stairs by the temple, his brother Simeon, which was Yeshua's other brother, he took over the reins of the church. And when just before Jerusalem was surrounded by the armies of Rome, they had the calling to get out, and it was Simeon who took them out, took the assembly out, escaped to the mountains and other places, to Pella, took them out there. When they remember what Yeshua said in his prophecies. When you see armies surrounding Jerusalem, you better run to the mountains. You better hope it's not in the middle of winter or on a Sabbath. And sure enough, it wasn't. But anyways, I just wanted to give you an intro about James, because James is in the back of the book where he should be in the front of the book. And the churches, they purposely put Paul in the front and all of his writings and everything, which Paul's a good, I don't got nothing against Paul. But, it's kind of obvious that they put the Hebrew authors and, apostles and in the back. You had the book of Hebrews in the back, James, John, Jude, Peter, they're all in the back, But that's all I want to say about that. And I encourage you to study the book because there's a wealth of knowledge and life lessons you can learn from it. And thank you again. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll be getting more content out. So go ahead and hit the notification bell and that like button and comment below. Let me know what you think about the book of James and if it's impacted your life and how. And I thank you again. Until we meet again, peace out and shalom.